This week, Israel's coalition set to advance core elements of its highly contentious judicial overhaul. They're expected to put through a series of controversial bills, the first to change the governing coalition to give it an automatic majority in the Judicial Appointments Committee, the second that the High Court of Justice will not be able to hear cases against basic laws. This, for example, would block the court from hearing the appeals against the Deri law. You'll recall Aryeh Deri was removed from his position as a minister after the court ruled it was unreasonable for him to have been convicted of tax fraud and serve in the government. Last week, the government rejected President Isaac Herzog's alternative proposal for judicial reforms, Netanyahu and others saying that the government would discuss different alternatives to modify the current legislation. It comes as hundreds of Israeli reservists from special forces units and cyber units say that they will not serve as of today, since the coalition is set to pass a law that would prevent the ousting of the prime minister because of his legal proceedings. And for the 11th week in a row, mass protests continuing against the government's controversial judicial bills. 260,000 taking to the streets, with the main demonstration happening in Tel Aviv and dozens of other locations throughout the country. Earlier in the day, protesters gathering outside the location where far-right leader and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir spent his weekend. Some residents in the area confronting the demonstrators there, spraying them with hoses and throwing rocks at them. Border police arriving at the scene to separate the two, throwing a stun grenade in an effort to disperse the crowds. 2 demonstrators there detained. But violence also breaking out in Tel Aviv last night, with several escalations reported among protesters and counter-protesters. On Thursday, this upcoming Thursday, protest organizers say they will be calling what is called the Day of National Shutdowns, the latest in a series of efforts escalating the demonstrations. Let's bring in now Daniel Sheck, the former Israeli ambassador to France and political commentator, joining us live in studio this morning. Daniel, thank you so much for being with us. The coalition says they will, quote, soften the reforms, but they're not discussing it with the president. They're not discussing it with the opposition. What can we really expect to come out of their version of modification?
The way it looks now, not much. I don't think so. First of all, because they are keeping their alleged softening very quiet and very secret. And second, because the question is, who will they be negotiating with? If it's not the president, who is sort of a unifying moral authority, even he had trouble finding the right interlocutors. Is it the opposition in the Knesset? Is it the leaders of the protests on the streets? Who is it they will be negotiating with? I don't think they actually want to negotiate. I think they will probably suggest a version that has 1 or 2 minor amendments, and then they will say, we did our bit, and now you take it or leave it. That's the way it looks right now, and that's not very promising.
Well, several senior figures within the Likud have reservations about passing the judicial overhaul bills before the end of the winter session, which is April 2nd. One member of the Knesset calling to freeze the legislation to discuss with the opposition. The Culture and Sports Minister calling for some sort of compromise. Do you think we can expect members of the Likud to vote against the judicial reforms?
I don't know. I just know one thing. Reservations is not enough. Either you speak up and you take responsibility for your reservations and you come to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Justice and you say, I'm a Likud member, I'm not comfortable with this bill, let's do something about it. You need 5 of those, and then the government no longer has a majority for the bills as they stand. As long as they just murmur, I'm not quite happy with this, I have reservations, maybe we should do this and maybe we should do that, and in the meantime, the train has left the station, that honestly doesn't mean very much to me.
Reservists in some of the country's most elite units vowing not to serve. If something were to happen, say a war with Lebanon, a war with Gaza, and these reservists do not go to their duty, what would happen to the country?
It won't happen.
It won't happen, plain and simple.
It won't happen, plain and simple. I think that these are the elite of the Israeli security forces, the army, Mossad, internal security, and you know, to a certain extent, diplomats in the forefront of the political battle. They are there because they are the most responsible and patriotic people that you can imagine. And if they have pain in their stomach and in their hearts in what they are seeing, then they are trying to express it. But if worse comes to worse and Israel is in some kind of jeopardy or danger, they will again be at the very first front. But the thing is that in order to keep these people absolutely operational, they need training, regular training, not when things happen, when things don't happen. And that is where they are putting pressure right now, that they are not going to participate in their regular training schedules.
Daniel Shecht, former Israeli ambassador to France, joining us live in studio this morning. Thank you.